Good morning, and welcome to Middle Earth Readings. My name is Maggie Rose Cunningham. I am your host, and today we're going to be working with full moon magic. So we're going to be selecting 6 runes to work with, to take a deep dive into around the types of magical work that you can be doing with them, working on the basis that for many of you, you're working with me month on month, and so you've already done your intention setting and your receiving through the new moon and the waxing moon, and that we're here working with your rune now. So for some of you, your runes are going to come up. So as a little heads up for you, the 6 runes that we're going to be taking our deep dive with today are Manas, Lagus, Thurasas, Kinas, Isa and Dargaz. So if you have any of those 6 runes, do post in the chat box, because it might be that we get something specific for you. Post your runes anyway, because it's lovely to hear your shares, and it has been wonderful reading the shares from people in the Hearth Space group over the last 2 weeks as we've started this new way of working, hearing how you are travelling with your runes, and hearing from people in the Hearth Space inner circle as well when we do our in-person meetings about how this is working for you. So happy full moon to you. Now, we're going to be looking, as I say, at rune magics, and this is a really powerful time, not only because we're at the full moon. So Mani, god of the moon, he is at his brightest, his most potent. He's very much like a witnessing deity, and he's a very benevolent force. So he can really support us during this time in working magically to transform, to bring what I think of as being big life magics when we work with a rune for inner transformation, and then that changes our external reality slowly over time, and for what I think of as, what should we call them, sort of in the moment results focused magics, when it's like, I know that I need to make this shift, which is certainly the way that I worked with the runes for many years when I first started to work with them. Nowadays I do a little bit less than that. I think that what happens is that over time your big life magics make the small life magics slightly less necessary, because you're working in flow. So you might want to have a little feel in and see, where am I right now? Are there areas where I would want to be working with a rune, perhaps my rune, the rune that I've got at the moment? What does it offer me? Will be the question that you'll be asking yourself, knowing the meanings of your runes. So you can look at my Elder Futhal pages on www.meganrose.com if you don't yet know all the meanings of your runes. But if you've been working with me over the last 2 weeks, you should have a really good idea now about the meanings of your runes, and therefore what might it offer you that you need at the moment. And that's a good place to start from, whether you're working on opening yourself to whatever that rune has to offer you, or you think, actually, there's a specific thing that I need to work with here. And we're doing this in the context of the planetary movements. So I'm going to discuss the planetary movements a little bit now. So this is, imagine the runic wheel, our 24 runes on the runic wheel, stretching out all the way to the edges of the Great Void, Gnunga Gap, set in place when Odin hung upon the world tree, and then he lets out this huge roar and he births the runes into our reality. And then here in Midgard, in Middle Earth, our planets are harnessing the energies of the gods. They're representing those energies, and they are moving through the runic wheel. And so the vibration of Mani's chariot, the moon, today is in Rado, the rune of the road, of rhythm, of ritual. And this is a really, really important planetary movement for us. So the moon moves almost every day into a new rune. It's quite rare, actually, for it not to have a transition during the course of a single day. Every now and then we have one full day in a rune, and it's lovely and potent and wonderful. But the full moon and the new moon, and to an extent as well the waning and waxing moon, are these energies that it's like a tide. So this full moon in Rado energy then is like the peak of the tide that moves us forward, and we can ride that tide. And there are a lot of very potent energies around at the moment. We've got Tewaz, we've got 2 planets moving into Dargaz. It's quite full on. the energies at the moment. They're quite full on. We also have no planets in retrograde at all, which people are normally like, yay, that's brilliant. But it can also be a very strong current, if you think that sort of current of energy that's pushing us. And so it can be a little bit overwhelming. And so the full moon in Rado says, it's really essential for us to work to manage those energies and not to forget to do that. And I had a really salient reminder of this, which excuse me, I've just written one of my runes down wrong. There we go. Which ties in with the full moon in Rado. It also ties in with Frigg's chariot in Manaz. So Frigg's going to move into Manaz later this week. Around our own management of our own energies and our own unique, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like energy field. So you've got the planets moving through the universe, through the solar system, all of the time. But you've also got your own individual birth runes, and they dictate is perhaps too much of a word, but they help to support us in understanding our own energy systems, our own unique weaving, let's say. And we're always partnering between our own individual energy and the energy that is offering itself to us in the universe. And at the moment, it's quite a full-on energy. So we need to be able to channel that. It's one of the reasons that we're working with Lagus today as well, channeling all of the stuff that's coming through. If you've got downloads coming through, sometimes it's going to exacerbate problems, challenges, illnesses, these sorts of things can be exacerbated because it's flowing through so fast. So sometimes it can be that, release. Sometimes it can be that, ride this wave can come through as well. And the full moon in Rado says, what is it that you need in order to do that? What rituals do you need to create? What container do you need to create? And as I said, I had a reminder of this morning. So I was preparing for this session. And obviously one of the new ways that we are now working is that I'm making sure that we draw all 24 of the runes during the course of each lunar cycle, so that whatever rune you get, there will be at least one reading that is specific to your rune through the course of the month. Now, for me, Middle Earth readings is a very Lagusy. Lagus is my sun rune, so it's a very seership, oracular wisdom. I feel into the energies of everyone who is here, and then I read the runes, and that's really fun, and it's a lovely way of working. But we are shifting now. We've moved in that, and so I was doing my work, and then could I find the piece of paper where I had written down the 12 runes that we've already covered? No. I have been through stacks of paper looking for this. And I just had to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to sit down. There's obviously an important point here around me creating the container for you and saying, where am I going to store these runes, my record of these runes, so that they're really present for me and alive for me in a different way, so they're not like on a piece of paper that I then can't find. I'll do that. So I sat down and I did some writing, and I was reminded through that of a lot of people that I work with, working in my coaching, working one-to-one with people, working in the groups, is that as people open to their spiritual side more and more and more, they get creativity and intuition and all of these wonderful things come through. You say, I am a creator, deeply intuitive, hate constraint of all kinds. Hate it. I've worked in a number of groups where that has been the case. That it can be really challenging. How do you marry up your in the moment downloads and a sense of a structure, a supporting structure that keeps all of the energy focused and channeled? Because it can feel very constraining. And what we need to do is we need to think about what are the containers that we need, like the magical cauldrons that we need in order to express our power, our intuitions, our spirituality, to allow ourselves to become a channel for that energy. And the planetary movements are really calling us into that. And the minute that I went, okay, so I really need to cover this in the live, I need to cover this partnership between constraints and creativity, and work on how is this going to work for me so that it feels good, so that it feels right, so that it doesn't hinder me, but it supports. What's the foundations that I need, the channel that I need for this to sort of fluidly come through. And the minute that I'd done that, that piece, I went, oh, I need to look in my bag. And I went to look in my bag, and I reached down to the bottom of my bag, my very large rucksack full of loads and loads of stuff, and I found this crumpled piece of paper at the very, very bottom of the bag, which was my record of the runes. Like, instantaneously it just came. And so it's like, oh, and that was the reminder to me. It was like, okay, sometimes it's more like the system, the way of operating might not be right for you. So it's that finding of what works for you. And this is important when we think about magic, because magic is the channeling of energy in a specific direction. So we need to work out, okay, how do I maintain that focus on what it is that I want to do, and how do I form that channel for this energy? So you can think about that in terms of you. How do I receive what's coming through and alchemize it within myself with my own unique magic, and then express it out into the world? What are the ways that work well for me? And that's not going to just be, I don't know, I quite like Trello. I've actually moved to a new software system now called ClickUp, which I'm loving. It's brilliant. Some people love an Excel spreadsheet. I do not love an Excel spreadsheet, but some people love an Excel spreadsheet. I also love the symbol right, that a magical intention setting. I love a rune reading, so the 9 Mothers rune reading that we did in the Hearth space last week. Have that up on my wall, and it acts as a container. I have the vision for my business up on the wall to remind me to channel my energy. So these are all forms of magic. This is all, how do I form the container so that I'm channeling my energy in terms of big life magics. Now, the other planetary movements we then have, so we have Odin moving into Tewaz. So Odin is moving into Tewaz on the 7th. So he's talking so much about when we hold ourselves back because we don't know everything. It's that sense of creating faith, and recognizing that faith isn't that free fall into nothingness. Talked about this in Suna's Star Wheel. For those of you who are members of Suna's Star Wheel, you already have had a heads up around the energies that are coming. So one of the things that I was talking about was it's a little bit like doing a parachute jump or abseiling down a cliff. But you don't just sort of go, right, oh, I want to get down that cliff and then jump off it, or like jump out of the plane. No. You say, what do I need to do in order to create the faith that I can do it? So, you get some great equipment, you have some lessons, you deal with any fears that you've got and you release them. And that's what creates the faith. And so when we work on our container, our full moon in Rado container, that will allow us to fall more deeply into what is it that is coming through for me in the moment, that's what we're doing. We're creating, our equipment that allows us to free fall down the cliff face and get to the bottom successfully. Then we have Tyr's chariot. So this is the equivalent of Mars. So Odin's chariot is the equivalent of Mercury, is moving into Dargaz. So this is all about alignment and integrity. So this is very much about creating faith in yourself through understanding yourself, through knowing yourself, what works for you. Recognizing that while we can talk generically, everyone has their own unique way of working. And I believe that we all have our own unique purpose. It's one of the reasons that I'm doing the Dream Will retreat that starts next week on Vision Quest, is to help each of the participants who are coming, and hello, I can see some people who've already booked, lovely to see you, to feel into the big purpose that is shared. It might be shared by a huge tribe of people on this planet who all feel that same calling, but then to drill that down further and say, okay, what is it that is unique to me, and therefore what is the specific expression of that purpose that is mine? And this is what Tyr's chariot in Dargaz is inviting us into very strongly through this time. And then our final planetary movement is Frigg's chariot, so the Roman equivalent is Venus, moving into Manas. And this is again very much about purpose. You know, it's a great time to be feeling into purpose and sovereignty and creating magic. She's talking about this idea of why do we lead? You know, why do we want to step into power? Why do we want to be able to do more in the world? You know, what is the service? There's this leading in order to serve, this sense of the humility of the sovereign who knows that they are trusted to hold what their people need of them and to bring that forward. Is, you know, this, we have so many fairy tales that, and I've been reading to my son. We've got this book, it's called 365 fairy tales. You can read one every day of the year. And there are so many of them that are about rites of passage of princes and princesses, which are about moving out of selfishness into selflessness, but not martyrdom. You know, it's that standing in your power so that you can serve. And we talk about that, you know, also, we did quite a lot of that in the last Dream World retreat, like looking at what are your needs. We're going to be doing that in the second session as well. It's going to be an important part of our next Dream World retreat. So through the course of this time, we're really feeling into that. And all of this comes through very strongly still with Suna's chariot, so the sun being in Tewaz at the moment, which we covered last week. All of this ties up in a neat bow around that sense of serving a purpose that you feel in your heart, you know, that is yours to serve, that it's not somebody else's, it's not something that has been projected onto you, that you've been told, you know, you must be this way, this is what success looks like, this is what you need to do, this is how you need to live. This is saying no, you know. So much of my work is about helping you and the people who come to Mag and Rose to work within the Northern tradition to find that spiritual core, that sense of wholeness, of who you are. So that's the context, the sort of planetary movement's context for why stepping into purpose, claiming power, really understanding like self-awareness about how the way that you work that's really potent work that can be done at the moment. So before we look at our runes, I'm just going to check in what people have said in the chat. Good morning, Shannon, to you from Minnesota. Hi, Candice. Hi, Suzanne. Lovely full moon, everyone. Suzanne says, Isa is my moon rune. Excellent, so we're doing that. And Michelle says, you have Largus. So we are going to be looking at Largus today as well, which is wonderful. So you need to remember that, Suzanne and Michelle. Morning, April. Happy full moon, Maggie. Karen, you've got Dargaz. Oh, we're doing Dargaz too. We're doing very well with this. And Candice has Manas. Well, there you go. Wonderful. It's all connecting very beautifully. April says, for this full moon in Virgo, I pulled Wunyo. So yes, Rado, if you look at the runic wheel, is the rune that's like bang in the middle of the Virgo zodiac sign. Also has Kinaz within it as well, and Ansus as well. But Rado, Futhark, yes, that's right, but Rado is in the middle, so that makes perfect sense. And you pulled Wunyo, April, so we're not covering Wunyo today, but it has come up. It's either come up or we're, have we already done Wunyo, or is it going to be next week? It's going to be next week, so look forward to that then. Karen's also got Dargaz, which is great. Have we already said that? Shannon, first time here. Hi, lovely to meet you, Shannon. And you have pulled Bacano. And Bacano is again going to come up next week. So share, what you already know about Bacano. You can use, this goes for everybody. You can use the Elder Futhark, the resources on www.maganrose.com to feel into your rune if you don't already know it, if you want to go deeper into it. There's not just written pieces there about the runes. There are also meditations for all of them as well. So you can feel into them. And Chen, you've got Northis. Oh, Northis almost came up. It was really niggling at me, but I was like, no, can't do that. But you're... You're saying, I got North, so the main is Yera, supported by Hagalaz, and North is very odd combo. I'm assuming that you're talking about the reading that we did in the Hearth Space on Friday, Chen. So for those of you who haven't done your Inner Circle Hearth Space rune reading, we were looking at the runes on either sides of our main rune, which was really fun last time. And yes, I think that is everyone. I'm glad. It looks as if there were some technical blips, but that most people that is okay, and that you can all see what's going on. April says, I love that, reading fairy tales. Yeah, there's so much wisdom in fairy tales, isn't there? And Sally Ann, hi Sally Ann, you're doing swello. Could you repeat the rune that Odin's chariot is in? Yes, so Odin's chariot is going to be moving into Tewaz. If you're really interested in the planetary movements, Shannon, I would recommend getting Suna's Star Wheel, because then you will have a resource with them all down, with all of the dates of when they happen. It comes, we're now doing the new moon. So at the new moon, you get a whole breakdown of all of the planetary movements coming and what they mean, and I do a little audio talk for you so that you can fully prepare. I've been changing all of the templates for that are in the resource section, our Sacred Play resource section, so that you can really work with the rune over the course of a month. So if you want to know those dates and you want to know exactly where all of the planets are, because we don't cover all of them, we cover the movements, Suna's Star is for you. Carol, you have got Iwaz and Wunyo. And yeah, that is great. So we are good to go with our runes that we're going to be working with. So let's have a little feel into. So Candice, you've got Manaz, haven't you? So if you have Manaz, if you're working with Manaz as your rune through the course of this cycle, this is a really powerful rune to be working with. And Frigg's chariot is going to be very supportive of that. I know, Candice, you're with Birth Rune Soul Journey, so it's a great time to revisit your Frigg's chariot journeys around those, to really feel into the power and the potency of Manaz, remembering that Frigg and Odin share the throne. And this is what is important for me when I think about Manaz at this point, is this shared leadership. And it's recognizing that when we move into maturity with our runes, and Manaz is in the third 8, we are now in the third 8 with Suna's chariot. So Tewaz is our rune that we're working on through Awaken at the moment. The sun is in Tewaz, so we have entered the third 8. And Odin's chariot and Frigg's chariot always travel very closely. They're very close to the sun, to Suna's chariot. So all of those, they're going to stay now in the third 8 runes for the next 4 months. So this is a time of blending energy. So you're going to be feeling this more and more. And so what Manaz is inviting is saying that sense of, how do things like your conscious and your subconscious mind work together? Where do you create space for that to happen? You could do things like, I talk about journaling quite a lot as being a useful place. It's like when we do, particularly if we do morning pages, like Julia Cameron's morning pages, where you're doing that writing as soon as you wake up in the morning. It's like a bridge between the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. But equally when we do journeying work, when we do meditation work. So one of the things that you can do is you can use that Manaz rune. You can write it at the top of your journal, or you can do meditation with the Manaz rune. You can work with the ravens, not with the subconscious and conscious mind, but rather with thought and memory, and that binding of thought and memory and how those work together. You can also look at things like, so for me, you'll notice that when I talked earlier about, hating constraint and having to always be nuancing the cauldrons that I create to contain my creative energy and to make it more potent. What I think about then is I work with my planner and my creator, and for years the two of them felt like they were at odds. We're in disagreement, we don't like this. And it took a really long time for me to get to the point of realizing that they are actually a deeply supportive partnership when I give them both their space. And that for me is important. So I would be creating like a Manaz talisman that is on my wall, or a pendant. I wore a Manaz pendant for quite a long period of time. in order to work on integrating those different aspects of me and recognizing, because if you think about the manas rune, if I find the rune, it is two Wunyo runes combined. So Wunyo is in the first state. It's that sense of, you know, belonging, and this is me, and, you know, this is who I am, and it's quite, it's very, yes, there is this unity and this oneness and this ecstasy that comes with Wunyo, this sense of, this is who I am, da-da! And Manas says the problem is that who you are changes all of the time, depending on like where you are, what energy you're in. If you're a woman, like what cycle you're in, and your, you know, biologically, what age you're at, or the initiatory rites of passage you've been through, and you're like, all of these things mean that we're changing all the time. And so Manas teaches us to always be in flux, you know, and bringing together these different aspects of the self. So it could be the past self and the future self are meeting in the center there, and to work on that sense of what I create around me supports that integration and expression of all that I am in the moment. So yeah, using the Manas rune as a talisman to do that can be really, really helpful. The other one would be channeling this, thinking about this Lagu's energy that we've been talking about a little bit, and the Tewa's energy that's coming through, and the Darga's energy, and all of the stuff, and it's sort of moving through, and there's, you know, a lot of energy coming through. Is looking at the partnership between your receiver, very helpful for people who are energetically aware, you know, emotionally intelligent, prone to taking on other people's energies, and your manifester. And when am I in receiving mode and when am I in manifesting mode? Because my belief is that if you are somebody who receives a lot of stuff, you also have within you the latent ability to broadcast as well, and to say, I am now feeling that this space doesn't feel particularly comfortable to me, and so I want to broadcast out something that feels better. And this is a really lovely time to move into Lagus. So for those of you who are working with Lagus at the moment, here we've got our Lagus rune, and you'll see that Lagus has a much less like structural integrity than Manas. You can imagine Manas, you could sit on Manas, couldn't you? You'd be like a throne, you could sit on it. Lagus, if you tried to sit on it, you'd fall off. You know, it's in constant flow, it's in constant flux. It's like a gushing waterfall, or a, you know, deep dive into the waters of the subconscious mind. And it's a different type of magical practice. One of the ways that you can think about the Lagus rune is as the spindle of Frigg. So Frigg is the most commonly associated deity with Lagus. So although we've talked about Frigg being in Manas, she will then move into Lagus. That's the next rune along. And so it's this sense of which, you know, it's almost like I was saying, where we create the container of Manas, we create this powerful structure, and then we can fall. You know, like I was saying about Odin. Odin in Tewa, that sense of being afraid to fall. What is it that you need? So when you create a solid infrastructure, then you can allow yourself to free fall into where you go. So for your Lagus rune, you may well be thinking about this magically in terms of how you work with your space. So it's every time when I work with people on a Drazzle's Path, when we work in our rune spaces, we always create space. We create a container, energetic container for what we're working with, and then we do the work, and then we bring it back down again and we close it. And for me, the Lagus rune is saying, you know, this is what I need. If you don't create those energetic containers, the water of Lagus, the energy of Lagus will just go, woof, it will go everywhere. You know, it won't be contained in that way. So for me, I would be thinking about Lagus in terms of, have I created an energetic bubble around my own home? How might I go about doing that? Have I done the cleansing work with Lagus, you know, to release anything that's in that space that I don't want to go into that space? Is the Lagus, you might almost think about like dowsing. Dowsing is a really appropriate activity to do for Lagus if you're a dowser. I'm not a dowser, but if you are a dowser, you can feel like, you know, where do I need to work with it, and use the Lagus rune will support you very effectively. It's a great rune for intuitive work. It's also great for spinning. So if you want to create a, what's the word I'm looking for? A really lovely way of working to hold space would be to get yourself a little spindle and spin the intention in for, you know, whatever it is that you want to do, and to use the Largus rune. There is so much that can be done with magical threads, with the creation of magical threads. So it's a beautiful meditative practice, and you know, I was talking about how we bring those different sides together. So Largus is a really good, spinning, it's a really good meditative practice if you're somebody who finds it difficult to do just a thing that's in your head. It brings the body and the mind together, and you spin and you focus. I remember spinning through my sister's labour, and imagining that I was not only working on holding the space. She had her midwives with her and she was fine, so I was just sitting quietly and holding the space and allowing the thread and the spinning to receive whatever energies were in that space. And then we created something afterwards, you know, with that thread for my niece. So she had that afterwards. It's like that type of hearth magic, very appropriate for Largus. So yeah, have a little bit of fun with your Largus rune, looking for flow. There's an article on meganrose.com around working with Largus if you're interested as well. Embrace your seership, embrace your magic, allow your intuition to take you where it is calling you to go. Then we are working with Thurisaz, which is a different energy to Largus. I always find these really interesting, and I think that's because we have this quite powerful, potent energy of Thurisaz, which can be very fiery, and then we've got the watery energy of Largus, so they can sometimes sort of feel as if they're cancelling each other out. Or we can have this quite dark energy of Thurisaz, which then bleeds into the Largus energy. So they can often bring out the slightly more challenging aspects of each other, but when they work together, and when we've done that inner work to allow them to speak to each other and to be friends, let's say, then we get the energy of the storm, you know, and it's that real it's the real potent energy of nature when we're waiting for the storm and the heat is building and it's building, and then we get like that massive crack of lightning, and then the water sort of floods down straight away, and we all go, oh, you know. So they are both very powerful runes, but they act in quite different ways. So with your Thurisaz energy, people can be quite frightened of working with Thurisaz magically because they think of it as being a cursing rune. Here's our Thurisaz rune here. So whereas Largus, you go, oh, it's a cleansing rune, it's going to be beautiful, la, 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 all of those things. Thurisaz, we go, oh, well, you know, I would feel uncomfortable using it to start with. And I think that's probably right. Not because Thurisaz is a negative rune, but because in our society, we are not taught how to channel Thurisaz energy appropriately. We are not given ways to channel anger, to manage fear. We're taught to repress it all down. So what happens when we work with Thurisaz is it goes, oh, there's loads of old Thurisaz energy inside you that I'm now going to start to activate. And that's where we get this sense of Thurisaz being a challenging rune. So what I would do is, if you are new to Thurisaz and you have Thurisaz for this month, I would go to my webpage and do the Thurisaz meditation there, because that works on on releasing the old energy of Thurisaz and bringing in the new. The difference between, if you imagine a thorn bush or a rose bush, any of these like bramble bushes, you get the new growth, these sort of green new shoots, and you get the berries and you get the flowers, and it's all lovely and wonderful. And then they die away and the wood gets more and more brittle. And the most vicious thorns are when they've died. You know, and you have to get your gardening gloves on and sort of pull them out, and they just jab at you, and it's horrible, and it's that old energy. Thurisaz energy has to keep on processing through. And in that sense, that's where we get the connection with Largus, because Largus is the same. So they might seem very different in some ways, but they are actually very, very similar in terms of they need to live and channel through us. Fehu is similar as well. When those energies get stuck in our bodies, they are prone to bringing out, you know, things that we don't like as much. So have a go with that meditation. If you're a little bit further on and you're a member of the Hearth Space, go to January 2022, I want to say, the January 2022 resource page about Thor, all of the work we did with Thor, and you've got your Hammer of Thor workshop there, so you can start to work with the energy of the Hammer of Thor's hammer, which also channels the Thurisaz energy. And it's this process with Thurisaz until we get to a point where actually I am comfortable with expressing my power without worrying that I'm going to harm other people because there's stuff in there that I haven't yet dealt with. You know, you might think about it as like the energy of the bear, the energy of lightning. It's a very powerful, potent energy. But if you're going to work with Thurisaz to start with the magics, I wouldn't start by, like, you know, creating a big Thurisaz thorn hedge around your home, because that's going to be created out of whatever associations you currently have with Thurisaz. You know, whatever old energy around anger and power and passion and fear and all of those big emotions you have felt in your life will go into that Thurisaz energy. So it can be a little bit maybe more aggressive than we had planned. So start with the Thurisaz meditation. Then we have the lovely Kinaz rune. So we have this lovely Kinaz rune of fire, enlightenment, the torch coming through. I can't remember if anyone said that they had Kinaz. I don't think they had here. But, well, hello to those of you who are not live with me who have Kinaz. So I'm actually going to be doing a little bit of a live with Kinaz. Thank you so much to those of you who have sent back ideas about what you would like to hear about around rune healing, which we're doing in the Hearth Space this month. I've been bringing those all together. I'm going to be doing a series of lives around rune healing, as well as a like introductory workshop to doing rune healing, and all of that is free. So that will be coming up. Watch this space, it's coming up. And I'm going to be doing one example around Kinaz, because a lot of people have asked about individual runes and how they work in terms of healing, what they offer. And Kinaz is a good rune to start with that one. Kinaz is the rune of, it's the rune of knowledge, creativity. It's what we've been talking about in terms of how do we channel energy from an idea into expression out in the world. So it can relate to the eyes, to receiving, to the keenness of sight, keenness of knowing, the accumulation of knowledge, cleverness, cunning, all of these things, all beginning with a K, you'll notice, which is Kinaz, all come from this. In Awaken to the Runes, I talk about developing your kenning hoard, which is your knowledge base of the runes, your energetic as well as in their knowledge of the runes. And Kinaz brings all of this to the fore. So it can be about, what do you want to learn? So remember that I asked you to, when you're thinking about your runes, think about what transformation does my rune offer me? And so for Kinaz, it can be around, I want to learn this particular thing. I don't know how to do it yet. So you can create a Kinaz. You can make a really nice candle and carve the Kinaz rune into it, raise energy with the Kinaz rune. So, talk a little bit more about this, but chanting the name of the rune, connecting into its energy and its power. So I can't go into like lots and lots of depth about how you are going to do that. On the Awaken program, we do all sorts of like, how do you embody the rune? How do you draw it and feel its energy in your body? But because you're creating a candle, you're going to be, the flame of the candle in itself is going to offer that, it's got to channel that energy of the flame into your Kinaz rune. So you could say, I want to learn this, I want to receive wisdom about this, and you could put your intention into the candle and carve the Kinaz rune. You could do it once, you could do it many times, you could do it 6 times, I want to say, because it's the it's the 6th rune in the Elder Futhok, so you could do it 6 times. And then burn the candle and say, bring me that knowledge or that wisdom. And that also energizes and activates the other side of Kinaz, which is the creator. So you're creating your candle. So anything that's an actual creative act with Kinaz works really, really well. So if there is something that you're struggling with, like Maggie said, I need to try and contain my energy in some way, but I don't want to. doing the Kinaz offering of creating a candle and presenting the problem, essentially saying, what I would like is to receive wisdom and information about how I can do this effectively, and then you create your candle spell. Is a really nice way of working with Kinaz. Yeah, that feels good and right to me. Kinaz, again, I'm trying to sort of demonstrate with all of these runes the way in which they in themselves contain energy. So even though Kinaz is a first 8 rune, all of the runes contain duality within them. Kinaz, the receiving of wisdom, and then the expressing and the channeling of it out into the world, the act of creativity, which requires us to receive inspiration from somewhere and then to express it outwards, is very, very Kinaz. Now, after our Kinaz rune, the rune that came up and said, yes, I want to know, it's a balancing rune to Kinaz. So Kinaz is a rune of fire. Its real meaning is it's like known as a torch. You can think about it as a torch in terms of a light in the darkness. You can think about it as a torch like the flame of the forge. It's also known as a sore or ulcer, and that's because it's a rune of, like, literally of manifestation. And this idea that illness comes into the body and then it manifests itself, or we're injured and then a bruise forms on the skin. That's very Kinaz as well. So it's almost a karma and a consequences thing of saying when you receive something, it changes you. And how are you going to express that outwards is what Kinaz offers. Isa is the rune that came after us, the rune of ice. Isa is all about stillness. Stillness and stability, appreciating the moment. It doesn't say, oh, I can see this and I need to immediately change it. It says, I'm not going to change it. I'm going to be fully present in the moment. So here's the Isa rune. You can see the simplicity. Oh, I just had a rune fall down. Hold on. There you go. It was the Isa rune, fell down. It's clearly telling me that I'm not doing something properly. Isa rune, there we go. It's fallen down. The simplicity of its shape. It's often seen as being like a bridge there, and one of the rune poems talks about the blind man needs to be led. And what I think about with that is it's often about surrendering fully to the present moment, to feeling into all of our senses, of not trying to change things, because we need to know what's in the moment now. If your environment is shifting and changing all over around you, you're not going to be able to, as a blind, the blind person doesn't want the environment to change. They want it to stay the same. So that, I know where this is, I know where this is, and when I don't know, that's when I need to be led in order to have that supported. But it's also about the leadership for me of the other senses. And this is one of the deeper meanings of that rune poem, is that sense of moving into meditation. We often rely very heavily on our eyes. We did last month, we worked with Heimdall, and he was talking about the listening, being present to listening. So anything that you can do with your Isa rune around stillness, around closing the eyes, doing listening meditations, it can be very helpful if you feel as if there is a lack of stability. It can be very helpful if your energy is scattering. Let's talk a little bit about the Lagu's rune and how the energy sort of goes everywhere. Isa obviously is ice, so it's solidified water. And so it does that process of solidifying. And again, there are actually 2 meditations that I have for the Isa rune because it's such a powerful rune to work with. And to be in that state of saying, I do not need to change myself in order to be better, stronger, more powerful, any of these things. So a lot of the energy that we're feeling is forward moving energy with the Dargaz rune and the Manaz rune and the Tewaz rune, and also the full moon in Rado. Even though I've said, this will really help with developing habits that are helpful for us, the full moon in Rado is still a moving forward energy. So if you've drawn Isa, it's really that sense of saying, for you are going to need to carve out those times of total stillness and feeling into the moment, and perhaps recognizing that you don't always need to look outside for help or guidance or purpose, that sometimes it's about dropping inside, and that sense of needing to be led can be about connecting in with your own leadership, with your own what do I need right now. So I really feel into that with your Isa rune. It feels like there's something else that wants to come through, but I can't for the life of me think what it is. If it comes back to me, I'll let you know with the Isa rune. There's something there around Isa magics that wants to come out and play, but I think it's almost like the nature of the Isa rune is to be silent, so it can sometimes be a little bit tricky to feel fully into. We'll see if it comes back. So our final rune for this week that we're going to be looking at is Dargaz. So again, Dargaz is at the very end of the Futhag. We looked at Dargaz actually quite a lot in the Hearthspace session last Friday. We were looking at it as being this gateway that holds together and connects different things, and it collapses all of those senses of difference in on itself. So whereas the Manaz rune, it sort of says, I can integrate everything, I'm stable, I'm secure, I'm going to have here's my structure, here's my container, here's my creativity over there, here is me channeling my subconscious stuff, and then my conscious mind is coming and they're integrating and something is going to come out, and it can feel very like a process, a conscious process that is very intentional in the way that it operates. Dargaz is it's about that immediate knowing that we get, that like flash of just knowing. It's often where you've been working on something for a long time and then suddenly something clicks and it all comes together and you think, well, why didn't I know that before? Should have been really, really clear to me, and it just wasn't. And then Dargaz goes, whoop, that's why. And it's like you suddenly go through the doorway. Now, practically speaking, Dargaz is a really fun rune to work with. So there's a couple of things that you can do with your Dargaz rune. If you're interested and you love these things more, the Awaken program for 2023 is open for bookings. We will be starting at the end of June, but you can book now. So just going to give you a little bit of a sense of the type of work that you can do with Dargaz. So Dargaz rune here, one of the things that I like to play with is the Dargaz spectacles. So here are my glasses, here like that. Imagine that instead of my spectacles, I create my Dargaz rune over my eyes. Really powerful for seership work. If you are a seer, give it a try. It's that sense of, I was talking about dousing with the Laguz rune, where we work with the body. Dargaz is much more that knowing in the moment. So we can put on our Dargaz spectacles when we want to see the reality of a situation. Really helpful for that. Word of warning, do not leave the Dargaz spectacles on. We are not designed to see all of the stuff all of the time. There is a reason that Isa says the blind man needs to be led. We are not designed to be open to receiving everything all of the time. Isa holds us and helps us to stay contained. Dargaz opens us up. It's brilliant. So it's great for experimenting and great for a small moment. Great if you're already doing any seership rites. You can use the Dargaz rune to enhance your seership. It's a really lovely way of working. But Dargaz is a paradox rune because we think that it's all about day. It means day, but it contains within it the day and the night. It contains both within it. And because of that, we can use the Dargaz rune both to see what's going on around us more, but also we can use it as a cloak to shield us if we work on the night energy. So you can work on creating a Dargaz rune in front of you that acts like a shield. I think it's Freya Aswin put me onto this one. It's really, again, fun to work with. So it's playing with perception. It's playing with what we receive and what we give out. I'm talking about the manifester, the receiver and the manifester. Your Dargaz rune works really well with that. If you're thinking about, I want to work with the receiver and the manifester, have a little bit of a play with your Dargaz rune. Dargaz helps you to, what's the word I'm feeling into? It helps you to, manipulate is the wrong word, to gain mastery of the energetic body, of our energetic field, of our perceiving things that are outside of the shared understanding that everybody has. You know, I can see a fox on the back of the wall here. You have no idea how many people in one-to-ones or sessions and things like that say, oh, your fox is having a chat with me and saying this. You know, it's, you know, mind-blowing how many people that's the case for. Obviously, you're watching the Zoom video and you're just going, well, you could just say, well, there's a painting on the back of the wall, but for some people they're like, well, there's a really powerful spirit guide who's now talking to me and wants to give me a message. You know, that's Dargaz. That's embracing your knowing. So if you want to embrace your own knowing more and more deeply, work with your Dargaz rune. Do not wear it for too long. It's a really good one that if you have a necklace with Dargaz on, take it off. You could have a Dargaz rune like on a stone, but put it in like a black velvet bag or something like that, so that when you want to work in that way, you can do that. If you work with crystal balls, they can be really good to work with a Dargaz rune. You can inscribe the Dargaz rune over the top of it and see it like almost like a filter that you'll see it through. But again, put it that, you know how when you have crystal balls and people say, oh, he's going to keep it in like a black silk cloth or something like that. Dargaz is very similar. You want to step in and out of it with care. So have some fun with your Dargaz runes. So 6 runes, a few little bits of magic to play with for all of you who are doing your rune magics through the coming week, harnessing the energy of this Rado full moon, harnessing the very potent forward motion of Tewaz and Dargaz and Manaz, with all of the planets working through there, and Suna's chariot and Tewaz as well. But channeling that and recognizing that each of us has to learn how we channel those in our own ways. Suzanne says, I use Dargaz on my crystal skulls. Of course you do, Suzanne. I should have known that you would. Carol says, a super lesson, wonderful. Sally Ann says, you love that. Lauren says, it definitely seems like a great meditation and way to see and find peace with old wounds. Yes, that's the Thurisaz one I think that you're talking about there. And Shannon is saying that Thurisaz came up for you a fair bit lately. Yeah, some of the runes come, and this is why, for me, this piece that we do on a Monday is so important, because for me, each of the runes is a spirit guide, and not in the sense of a deity with a what's the word, like an agenda. Runes don't have agendas; they have natures. You know? And so when one of them steps forward, the rune readings that we do then draw us into the energy of that rune, and it becomes a guide for us in the moment. But it's not in a sense of saying, no, you should do this or you should do that. That comes from which rune is calling, which one feels strong for me at the moment. So if you feel a rune coming, strongly for you, how can you work with it as a spirit guide? And obviously for this week, how can you work with it? What does its nature suggest to you around the transformation that it supports or offers to you? So many blessings to all of you. I know I've mentioned Suna's Star Wheel, I've mentioned the next upcoming Dream World Retreat, and I've mentioned Awaken as well. So I will pop those links into the chat box. They will also be on the blog underneath the video and on YouTube. And I think on the newsletter as well, so you'll have those links to go. Oh, actually, just as an aside, so some people asked that I can't tell the difference between the YouTube channel and the Facebook group and the blog in terms of Middle Earth readings, and the answer to that is there is no difference. The only advantage you have of being a member of the Facebook group is that, like all of the very wise people who are here joining me right now, you get to join live and be in the energy of the moment and ask your questions and have your readings done. Everything else is just the recording, being shared in different forms. So blessings to all of you. Have a fabulous week ahead, and I look forward to seeing you all very, very soon.